Hi everyone, or whoever's watching this. My name is Simone McCarthy, and this is my lockdown video diary.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Nerdly Out Loud, the official channel of nerdly.co.uk, your favourite British website for all of your news, reviews, and exclusive interviews. I don't really think I should be saying that on this episode, though, because I do have somebody on with me who writes for another awesome pop culture geeky website, but we'll get to that in a quick hot second. We like to talk about everything from the big budget to the low budget to the no budget, with a special keen interest on the lower end of the scale. As you all know, that's where my heart lives and it's where it lies. Tonight I have got director James Perkins, the director of a short movie, The Veil of Isolation, which I saw at the Romford Film Festival. I'm representing that t-shirt tonight. And I got a chance to speak to James when I was down there, but I was supposed to have a proper interview like I was doing when I was down there. If you've been watching the channel, you would have seen them. Yeah, things got hectic, so me and James had to put it back a little bit. But it seems to be good timing. It does seem to be good timing, but we'll get to that. James Perkins, how the bloody hell are you? How are you this fine summer's evening?
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, thank you, Kevin, for having me on. It's I was saying to you off air that as somebody who interviews for a magazine, it's still surreal for me to be on this side of the table. So I felt like prepping for this. I was like, right, I've got to write out some questions, and then I was thinking, hang on a second, no, I'm going to be the one answering questions. So, but yeah, I truly appreciate it in all the kind words, and meeting you proper at Romford was incredible. It's an incredible festival. I was only there for the one day, but I still had an amazing time, and I wish I could have stayed for longer. But no, I was truly honoured to meet you. And Spencer and everyone else at Romford, and the fact that my film was able to be screened there was something, you know, that I will never ever be able to forget. It was really, really special. But yeah, I'm honoured to be here on your show.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you on, and I wish I'd had you on a little bit sooner. But like I say, fortuitous circumstances, we have something coming next week, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I did actually want to start there because you write articles and you review movies and you critique movies for Starburst magazine, which is, everybody will know Starburst that's watching this channel or any channel really. They'll all know Starburst because it's awesome. But how have you actually taken to that side of being interviewed instead of interviewing? Like, how do you wrap your head around that?
Well, I said this to a few friends of mine when I came down to Romford in preparation for the Q&A. I was saying how I think the fact that I have spent so many years being the one interviewing, that being the interviewee should be, and it actually is, a lot easier than if I'd never done anything like this before. I think that if I had no experience in public speaking or anything like that, I think that you would have been able to see that in the interview at Romford. I was obviously, a little bit nervous to begin with because it was still such a surreal experience. But once that initial stumbling block had been overcome, I was able to just sort of free-flowing go into it. But yeah, it's still crazy, and I'm glad to be able to get used to it, because I'd like to hope that in my future career I'll be doing a lot more of these sort of things. But yeah, it's helped out a lot working for Starburst and continuing to work with Starburst in various capacities. I tend to stick more towards the anime side of things, as I've met so many independent filmmakers over the years that kind of got to a point now where I try and stay away from a lot of those, especially the British ones, because I don't want to seem too biased. So
Oh, yeah.
I do tend to focus on either the bigger stuff or the stuff from the East, and that way I can sort of have a bit more of an open mind, and because it is such a different genre and different culture, that it makes things a little less biased, shall we say.
Yeah, I think I maybe need to take a leaf out of that book, because I am super biased. I'm all about the British indie scene, and I love to just watch them, champion them, and I'm a little bit fairer on some of them than I should be, but but I know what you're saying. I do know what you're saying. It's a hard line to straddle. Before we get into the Veil of Isolation, and also your other short, which I can never say right, so I'm going to let you say the name of that one. But before we do get into that, tell us a little bit about James Perkins and how James came into working with Starburst, or for Starburst, reviewing movies and critiquing movies, and how that led into what I'm assuming is your main passion right now, filmmaking.
Right, so I'm 31, and I've been a lover of film from a very, very early age. I've always been interested in how they're made, but I never, for whatever reason, I never decided to go down that path when I was at school or at college, because I never went to uni. I could have gone to uni to study either like media, journalism, or film studies or anything like that. But when I was younger, I used to make home movies with friends, just sort of messing about, and I've always had that passion has always sort of lingered in the back of my mind. And it's crazy to think that I only actually started reviewing film back in 2015. I had written a review for, I think it was The Darkest Hour, which was like a really sort of cheesy alien invasion sci-fi movie back in 2014. I had done a little audio review of that on a friend's podcast, and then that kind of instigated the want to maybe try and do this as a career. Yeah. So I was putting out some short reviews on just my socials and a little blog spot I had. I think it was, it's no longer in existence now. But then I put out the feelers for websites that were looking for people to review stuff. So I ended up writing for The Digital Fix in its previous iteration before it got taken over by new people. And then from there I went to Hey You Guys in, I believe it was 2017, and wrote for them for a bit, and I really enjoyed my time there, well, both and at The Digital Fix. But I felt like something was missing, and I wanted to take that next step and take everything that I've learned. And that's when I'd always sort of known about Starburst. That was always a thing that was in the back of my mind. And I decided to take the leap. I thought, I've got a few years' experience under my belt. I had already begun to develop a friendship with some of the indie filmmakers in Britain. And because of that relationship I'd started to develop, I thought I was in a good position to be a part of the family at Starburst, and they took me under their wing. And from there, it's just, I feel like joining Starburst has accelerated my career and influence within British film journalism tenfold. I think that, like I said, as much as I love Digital Fix and Hey You Guys, I felt like I was part of the cogs in the nicest possible way. Yes. I'm eternally grateful for everything. But with Starburst, I felt like my own entity, but also being part of a tight-knit family. Everyone helped out everyone. So many bigger opportunities were presented to me. Because the Starburst name has such a power behind it. Mm. And by joining them, and because we were so focused on independent cinema, especially British, I met so many incredible people like Tom Payton, Charlie Steeds, and of course Scott Lias, who went on to be producer for me for Veil of Isolation, and has become one of my closest friends. And I met them all through Starburst. And because of meeting these people, I thought to myself, well, I've always wanted to potentially make films, but I've never been in a position to know what to do, where to start. So by forging these friendships through journalism, I was able to ask them for advice, where to start. I started coming up with ideas and passing them around, and then they were helping me develop those ideas. And it was in 2019 at the Starburst Film Festival that I went to myself, I feel like I'm in a position now where I can make this dream a reality.
Yeah.
And I started work on my first script, which is for a film that still hasn't been made, because originally we were going to make it in 2020, and then obviously little thing went round in 2020. I don't know if anyone's heard about it, but at the 2020 Starburst Film Festival, which was literally the week before the first lockdown, I was able to really sort of cement some business partnerships, especially the one with Scott, and then we just sort of went from there. And I mentioned this in the Romford Q&A, how it was quite a surreal thing to start this crazy yet incredibly rewarding career path during the midst of a global pandemic.
Yes.
But we made it work, and I think that I hope that my film shows, and a lot of other films that came out during this show, that no matter the limitation, no matter what filmmakers, especially indie filmmakers, are faced with, there is always a cost-efficient and creative way to get around it. From there, I've kind of I'm kind of here now. But it's to think that this crazy journey started with just putting out a tweet looking for a website to write for, just to stick my nonsensical reviews on. So it started just over 7 years ago. It's been a whirlwind 7 years.
That's awesome, though. That's awesome, and you're right about the pandemic and how people had to get creative and how they made their movies. Like, everybody thought, you know what, we're not going to be getting any new content for a while, and not only did we get content through the pandemic, but now we're getting some really just awesome content on the back of the pandemic as well. So there's some pretty ropey stuff as well, I will say, but you know, for the most part, we've been getting some good content. So let's talk a little bit about the Veil of Isolation, because obviously you've now decided, I'm going to be a filmmaker and I'm going to do it at the best humanly possible time. I'm going to do it during a pandemic. Tell us a little bit about what Veil of Isolation is to you, not necessarily as a viewer, but to you personally as the story.
It to me, the Veil of Isolation is such an important part of my life. It all sort of stemmed from wanting to tell a story that was at one point rooted in reality, but also with the surreal and psychological attached to it. Because for me, psychological horror films are my favorite. I'm a fan of slashers and some jump scare stuff. Not the cheap tacky jump scare fest, as I call them, but I like a good jump scare. But something that really gets under your skin and is grounded in reality, with that either supernatural or out-of-body experience, and maybe like a tad of sci-fi. Anything like that mixed with real life is something that is so impactful, because characters are the most important thing to me in any kind of media, be it video games or even wrestling. So I'm a big wrestling fan. Or in movies or in TV, characters are the center of the story. And if you can create a character that is someone who the audience can connect with on a deep emotional level, no matter what scenario you throw them into, it's going to be a hit. So that was something that I really aimed to do with Veil of Isolation. It just so happens that not only the character is very grounded in reality and relatable, but also the scenario, for the most part, is grounded in reality as well. And it's, as much as I was very pleased with my first short film, Sequestration, that's how you say it, it is a bit of a mouthful. I've got a story about that, which I'll talk about later.
I tried to say a few at Romford as well, but I'd had a few drinks, so...
Yeah, so Veil was such an important moment for me, whereas, because even though it was only my second short film, I had got my foot in the door with Sequestration, that, you know, I could have just edged the door, for want of a metaphor, I could have edged that door open a little bit more with Veil, but I wanted to fully swing open that door and make this second short film of mine such a statement piece. And I feel that, along with my original idea and then working so closely with Scott Lias, that I was able to create something I think very special. It's very special to me, and something that can show that you can do anything no matter what is thrown in your way as well. So I wanted it to be something that's special to me, but also inspirational to other people. And to also test my hand at world building, because with my first short, yes, there is a bit of world building there, but it's mainly focused on the characters and their immediate danger. But with this, I wanted to try my hand at telling, not showing, and seeing how good I was at doing that. And, you know, no matter how far I get in my career or where I go on to do, I know that, you know, nothing is ever perfect. No one is perfect. Nothing is ever perfect. But if I can always just push myself and grow and inspire, that's the main thing to me. So I'm so pleased that Veil has achieved so much. And you know, so just the short answer to your question is, I wanted it to be special, and it really was.
and the thing is, like, I think people can it is grounded, because people can really take to it, especially after everything that happened. I mean, I had been writing reviews for a while, doing podcasts for a while, but I'd never done a YouTube video review. I'd never done anything like that. Lockdown happened. I'm like, you know what? I've been wanting to do that for a while. I'm going to give that a try. I got nothing else to do. I've built my bar in the garden. I've had a few beers. I've sorted the fence out. I'm going to try this. And that snowballed into all of this, which also snowballed into joining up with Romford. And it was awesome. It was awesome. But what I also wanted to say was, you're on about swinging open the door and showing people what you can do. I've now watched your first movie, Sequestration. I'm never going to get it right. But
yeah.
I'll take that. and it's a great little short, very well told, creative usage and everything like that. But then you watch Veil of Isolation, and it's just levels above in terms of the camera looks great, the sound is fantastic. You've got a hell of a lead actress in there, and not to say that the guys in the first short weren't that great, but you've got a hell of a lead actress in here who clearly is a very good camera woman as well. And just the leap you made between those two shorts is just great. And how was that for you to then go to Romford, see it up on the screen, and be like, oh man, this looks awesome?
Yeah, it's again, I'm going to use that word special. It's something I never really dreamed of, because, you know, I started this filmmaking journey, and there's always that part of you that thinks, you know, I might not make it, but I'm going to do it for me, and then anything that comes after that is a Brucey bonus, as I like to say. So yeah, to go from the no budget Sequestration, that was something that I wanted to do, to, you know, to keep the creative juices flowing, not only in myself but in the performers that I got for the project. Ben Manning, Francesca Louise White, and Kay Davis Speak. All three of them were amazing, and we did that with like little to no budget. And the process of that was very swift, but I knew that was not going to be the case for everything.
Yeah.
Then to continue that and go on to Veil, like you said, everything about it is a leap in quality, and that included, the work that went on behind the scenes as well. And although it was a lot of stuff to do, it was still very, very, incredibly rewarding. And then seeing that on the big screen at Romford and a couple of other places now has been, it still gets me every single time, because it's something I think as well, for those who have seen the film or will be seeing the film very soon, is that I think it works both on the small screen and the big screen because of the way it's portrayed, which I think a lot of films try to do and don't quite do successfully, but I like to think that Veil does achieve that. So yeah,
it definitely does. Because the way she's telling her story is very much like, it's almost like it's made to be watched on YouTube, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean there? Like, I'm not saying like the style of it and the way she's like doing the vlog and everything, but let's talk a little bit about Natalie Martins, because she is a little bit of a powerhouse in this shot. She's doing all the heavy lifting because, of course, it's just her. Well, is it? We don't know. And so she's just doing all the heavy lifting for you. You've got a really easy job to do because you can't even be there to tell her what to do. How did you guys go about making this during a lockdown? It's a question I've asked a few people that have made movies like this, but I'm always interested to know how you guys made this one work in your partnership.
Well, yeah. So first of all, Natalie was an absolute superstar. I can't wait to work with her again. There's a little hint. I was so lucky to get her on board with the project, because I've been a fan of her work for a long time. I was first introduced to her through Charlie Steeds and the film The Barge People, which she was in with Kate, and we kind of connected through that, and then it kind of just snowballed. I checked out all of her other work, and the first draft of The Veil of Isolation was in a lot of ways so different to how it ended up. But Natalie I always wanted Natalie to be a part of it, and I just didn't think that I was going to be able to get someone of that caliber to be on board with the project. But with the help of Scott and just continuing to develop a relationship over a period of time, I was able to then pose her with the question of if she wanted to be part of this project. And I was very, very fortunate as well, because even if she wasn't able to do the cinematography, which she ended up doing because she has incredible camera equipment, because she does headshots and events as well with her photography camera, we're able to utilize that equipment. So as you can see up here, I've got the original slate from the production. So she did serve as cinematographer. Even if I did have to go with somebody who didn't have the equipment that Natalie had, I still think that it would have still felt a cut above my first. But we were just very, very fortunate that we got an incredible actress and someone who had some great equipment that could give that extra lick of paint to the overall quality of the product. And having to direct this during a pandemic where you couldn't go and see people was, again, a really crazy experience, because at this point I'd done now 2 short films and I had never been on set. It wasn't until it wasn't until I produced a short film last year in May, that was the first time I'd actually ever been on set for anything. So for Veil, we shot for 3.5 days, and we spent hours on WhatsApp video call. So what I would do is we would talk about what scene we were going to do. We would go through what I wanted. And I think the beauty about this was that I was able to say, these are the key points I want to hit, but sort of feel how you feel Simone would react, or what she would say, or the dialogue, if it seems a bit stilted, just sort of free flow, but these are the main points I want to hit. It kind of felt like I was, if we're sort of using a wrestling analogy, it's kind of like the new era of WWE. Now Triple H is in charge. He can say to the wrestlers, look, this is what I want, these are the key points, but just feel the crowd, feel the energy. If you want to drop in some, real life stuff, your personal stuff, go for it. Just feel the room. And I felt like I was able to do that with Natalie because she is such a natural, and I feel like the script was strong enough that she was able to just take those points and just run with it. So we would go through that. I would then hang up the call. She would go and do some takes for maybe like 30 minutes or so, and then get back to me. Would jump back on a call, send across some takes via cloud storage, go through some stuff. Let's try this a little bit differently. I really like that, but let's do that differently. And that's kind of the way that I had to approach it. It was very, in the best way possible, it was very stilted. So it was talk about it, wait a sec, she would go off and do the takes, come back, then we would sort of reconvene. And we shot, as I said, for 3.5 days. That included some night shoots. I'll never forget the time at 4:00 in the morning where her laptop overheated and she had to put it in the fridge to cool down. It'd be interesting to see just by that bit of information if you know what scene I'm talking about. It was so weird to then go from that to then being on set for this film that I produced called File Not Found, an amazing sci-fi horror written and directed by Lindsay Bennett Thompson, to then be on set and see someone directing in the flesh on set, and how different that was. Whereas I think a lot of filmmakers who did do stuff during the pandemic went from being on set to then doing it remotely, whereas I've again gone the opposite way. So everything now that I'm seeing on set is brand new, is fresh, and also a much better way of working. But like I said, creators during the pandemic, we made it work.
I don't know, like if a director doesn't even have to be in the room, that sounds like a dream job.
It was, but there's always that part of you that just really wants to be there, because there's nothing quite like being on set. Really, it's a very special experience. So
there's one or two quite emotional sort of scenes in Veil of Isolation where Natalie gets to a certain point of fear, anger, excitement, like just different emotions that she's going through. Did she ever tell you how she maybe got to those points, or how did you go about getting her to those points to emotionally, being that you couldn't be in the room? I mean,
yeah, that's a really good question. I think that, again, I was very fortunate that Natalie was such a natural, that when I was sort of explaining exactly how Simone should be feeling, I was able to, with my direction and also the way that Natalie had in her own mind developed the character and got into the psyche of Simone, she was able to really hit those emotional beats. And I thought to myself, because I never I would never dream of telling an actor how to do their job. It's just a case of obviously what I want, and it's that level of trust between the two parties. And I think that Natalie and I definitely had that trust, with the script in the middle of us, and then us on either side of the script. We were able to meet in that middle, which was the sweet spot. So I never sort of pressed her to sort of tell me how she got to those points. I just believed in her ability to understand what I wanted and understand the character from just reading the script and the things that were going on around her.
No, I like that. What I will say is, as someone who lives up in the northeast, almost on the border of England and Scotland, please ask her not to do that Big Brother accent again. That's what I will say there. Because
that was something that was one of the first things I remember writing. Was I wanted it to be that, again, that level of relatability, and I definitely found that with us all being locked inside, that all we needed to do was put a camera in there, and it did feel like Big Brother. And in the first entry of her video diary, she does talk about never doing anything like this before, and I think that you would kind of just at that early point in the story, you would kind of be a bit jovial and, this is a new experience, this is kind of fun, this is something we've never done before, we're all stuck inside, we'll make a good time out of it. And then obviously everything changes.
so on that, and we won't dive too deep into that because it's spoiler territory, but you mentioned a little bit earlier that there is a little bit of world building going on here, and I believe I told you at Romford that it was zombies or aliens. I was adamant, but but on that, like, can you see you producing something else, whether it be a short or another feature, or can you see you elaborating on Veil of Isolation? Can you see yourself dipping into this story again, but maybe sort of like what The Purge did, the second movie they went outside? Could you see yourself doing that with this story?
Yes, absolutely. It's something that as soon as even before we'd shot this, as soon as I finished writing the script, I started developing ideas for the next part. I definitely want it to be feature length. That's what I'm aiming for. And there's, for those who haven't seen it, there is a character who is mentioned in the short who isn't seen in the short. And that particular character will be the focal point of the next chapter of this story in this world. And yeah, I kind of like that analogy of like The Purge. The first one was very sort of tight knit and closed, and then the second one was a lot more open, kind of like Alien and Aliens. Very claustrophobic. The first one, second one, obviously you got the planet and you got the colony. So yeah, that's kind of a vibe that I'm going for. But I feel like there are so many more stories to tell. A lot of the characters that I've been developing, we could even delve into their stories, kind of like similar to Simone's in the early days of the event that is transpiring to cause the cause the lockdown. But yeah, there is a very, very human story that I want to tell with the feature. Again, sort of harking back to psychological and character-driven horror films are always my favorite, and that's what I want to do with this. I think I achieved that goal with Veil, but then I want to take it the next step further and really sort of push that idea with the feature. So when people do check out the short, if they haven't, I'm also just going to take this opportunity now to say that Veil of Isolation will be available for everyone on YouTube on the 11th of August at 6 p.m. British time. And that will mark the 2-year anniversary of when we started shooting. So I thought that was nice. We've had 2 years of post-production and then the festival circuit, and now it's time to unleash it on the world and show everyone Simone's story, and of course Natalie's incredible performance, Liam's amazing sound design, and hopefully people agree with my direction and my writing ability, and to sort of introduce the world to the story of Simone and the world that she lives in, and then from there go on to the feature.
See, now, for anybody out there who wants to do this kind of thing where you get to interview directors and everything like that, this is why interviewing somebody who already does interviews is the best person to interview. He knows when to say his stuff.
I know where to put the plug. That's the most important thing.
The question was all lined up. Didn't have to ask it. That's why you watch this. But I do want to quickly ask on that, because the movie is coming out on YouTube, which is going to be amazing for everyone to see, and I want everyone to check out. We will plug it as much as humanly possible. We'll put out
Thank
everything we can. I got to watch this initially when I was judging for the panel for Romford, and then got to see it on the screen, and then I can't wait for people to see it on YouTube when it comes out and watch it on your big screens at home. But you're a reviewer, you're a critiquer.
Mhm.
How do you take and how do you feel when you see what people are writing about your projects?
So for me, as I kind of alluded to earlier, my main goal with filmmaking is to I want to do it as a full-time career, and be able to live comfortably. It's never been about the money. For me, it's mainly about inspiring people. I know that people out there, like myself, have these stories that they want to tell, but don't quite have the confidence. Like I said, it was going to writing for Starburst, going to the film festival, meeting other creators, which gave me that drive, that ability to feel confident within my own ability. And that's kind of what I want to put forward to other people. Now, when people have come to me to talk about what I've done and other projects I've been involved in, stuff is never always perfect. People will, some people are obviously there, and your very close friends and family will always say positive things, but deep down, sometimes they might not always be telling the truth. But there are obviously people out there that might have questions or don't quite connect with certain things. And I think that my advice for people out there who are in my shoes and who are writing or directing or producing or anything like that is that if someone says something negative about your work, even if they don't put a positive spin on it, try yourself to put a positive spin on it. If they say this was boring, try and think, right, what was it that didn't quite get their juices flowing, the excitement levels up, if that was obviously what you were going for. If they said, oh, the special effects were bad, then think, right, okay, what can I do next time to make it better? Always try and turn something negative into a positive. And something that Scott said to me very, very early on and it's always stuck with me, is that he would rather someone actively, like, negatively dislike his work than just think, oh, that was okay. Like he wants either, oh, that was, I hated that, or I loved that, because at least then, even if you hated something, you will always still remember it. There are plenty of movies that I've seen that I've absolutely hated, yet I still sometimes think about them. They're always still in my mind. Whereas movies that I've seen and just gone, that was okay, I'll forget the name of them by the following week. But other movies I've hated and I still remember them 5, 10, 15 years later. So there's always that level of connection. But I'd never take... I'm quite lucky. I'll talk a bit more now about some personal stuff. I was bullied at school. Now, obviously that can affect people in various different ways. I've been very fortunate that although I was bullied and it was very, very hard to get through initially, I think weirdly in the long run, that has helped me develop thicker skin, if you want to put it that way, when I'm older, so that when people do say negative things about me or my work, I'm able to just not only brush it off, but like I said, put that positive spin on it. Think, right, what can I do better?
Yeah.
What can I do to potentially turn that quote unquote hater into a quote unquote lover? And I think it's just very important for people not to take it to heart, because you're never going to please anyone. Like I said, no one's perfect. Nothing is ever perfect. You might think your favorite movie is the perfect movie. Someone else could think it's the worst thing ever made. But the main thing is, if you like something, that's fantastic. If somebody else didn't, just talk to them, ask them questions if they are approachable, and never take it to heart, because at the core of it, you are always going to be your biggest critic. no matter what anyone says. You
Exactly.
are always your biggest critic. And as long as you make yourself happy, that's the main thing. And if you can inspire other people along the way, then, like I said, that's a huge bonus.
I love that outlook, and it's great to hear you say that, because the amount of people over the last like 5, 6, 7 years that I've been doing this, the amount of directors and amount of producers and whatnot that I've spoke to, or actors, and it's like they've got a negative review from someone, and it's like the end of the world, and it's like, hey, you're not going to please 100% of the people 100% of the time. Like, just
Exactly.
chill out, you know. And that one person who did give you that bad review, next movie you make, prove them wrong. You know, like just prove them wrong. Like
that's what you have to do is just keep bettering yourself. So going from sequestration to veil of isolation, everything about it, in my opinion, hopefully, well, like you said, yours and a lot of the people said, it's so much better. So now my next film that I'm making, let's make that better, and just keep improving yourself, because that's the best way to get through life, is just improve your abilities, improve your outlook, and everything else will just fall into place.
And then you end up making Veil of Isolation. So there you go.
Exactly.
I'm going to wrap it up a little bit in a quick second, but what is next? Obviously, you want to turn Veil into a feature, but what else is next for James Perkins? What are you working on?
Right, so as I mentioned earlier, I produced a short sci-fi horror called File Not Found, which is currently in the festival circuit. We shot that last year, and we had the premiere at the London Short Film Festival earlier this year, where we also picked up the Best Sci-Fi Short Award, which was incredible. We shot that in Blackpool, and that was such an incredible experience. Then I worked on Scott Lias's feature debut, Walking Against the Rain, which gets its world premiere at Fright Fest at the end of the month, 27th of August in the Prince Charles Cinema. So I think there are a few tickets left. If you're coming to Fright Fest, please do join us. That'd be amazing. I'm so proud to be just a small part of that journey and that experience and that project, because it's a special film. And like I said, I've become such good friends with Scott that I would support him in anything that he does. And also in terms of my own stuff that I've written and directed, I made a micro-budget horror called 426, which I shot entirely on my phone. So that's coming out in the next couple of months. I'm aiming for a sort of around Halloween time release for that, because I think that'd be nice after having Veil obviously unleashed on the world for a couple of months, and then 426 will be coming out. And I'm currently co-producing a short horror drama, which I can't talk too much about yet. That's in the early stages. And in terms of writing, I'm co-writing a sci-fi comedy short film, which is called Always Open, which is another very relatable comedy about working in the retail business, which is something that I also have to do to make ends meet until I can make money doing films, of course.
Sci-fi comedy, the retail industry, it writes itself.
Absolutely, it does.
So I'm gonna let you go in a quick hot second, but I've got one more really, really softball, easy question for you to basically end up on, and that is in your journey from film journalism to filmmaking and beyond as you go forward, if you had to name a Mount Rushmore of directors or writers or people that have inspired you on this travel, what kind of names would we see in the mix here?
Oh, a Mount Rushmore of filmmakers or directors? That's quite a big question. I think first of all, I have to say Guillermo del Toro is one of my favorite filmmakers. I would say to join him, let's go with John Carpenter. Yes. Absolutely, I think he definitely deserves to be up there for me. There's two more.
This
It's
is why
big.
I was thinking to myself earlier on today, will I just send him the question so that he can prepare? And then I thought, no, let's see what he says in the moment.
Third has got to be George A. Romero.
Very nice, very nice.
And finally, I'm going to keep it indie. And because he is such a good friend of mine and a true inspiration, I'm going to put Scott Elias up there as well. Put Scott Elias up there with Romero, Del Toro, and Carpenter.
I was literally sat here thinking that he's going to name his fourth person, and then my comment is going to be, so no Scott Elias. But then you dropped him in.
I beat you to it.
So, but before we wrap out, let everybody know where they can find you on the social medias or anything like that, where they can find your projects, and of course, pimp out Veil of Isolation one more time.
Cool, thank you so much. So on Twitter, I am at Midgemeister, which is MIJMEISTER. On Instagram, I'm at Magic Perkins, which is kind of my nickname within the Starburst family. And on YouTube, you can search, if you just search for James L. Perkins, it will present you with my YouTube channel. On there will be Veil of Isolation on the 11th of August at 6 p.m. British time, British summertime. Yeah, we're still in the summer, of course, because it's incredibly hot. And also on there is my first short film, some teaser trailers for the projects I've been a part of. And apart from that, so Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to say, Kevin, thank you so much again for having me on. It's been incredible to keep this learning process of being on the opposite side of the table, and just to talk about Veil. Like, I could talk about Veil and Natalie and Scott and various other things for forever, and I just feel like I'm so blessed and so lucky to have been able to do all of this. So thank you for bringing me on to introduce hopefully a new audience to myself and my work.
Again, you're thanking me, but genuinely, it's great to have you on, and it's been a great little chat. And I'm glad we didn't get it done at Romford, because I feel like we've had more time to breathe, we've had more time to speak, and we've got to know you and your filmmaking journey a little bit more. And 100% going forward, if you've got new projects coming, let me know, and we'll talk about it. We'll get it done. And please, everybody, Veil of Isolation, the 11th of August, check it out on the YouTubes. Obviously, check out the first movie as well, Sequestration. I'll try it again. Which I have subsequently, since Romford, watched, and I did enjoy it. I really did enjoy it. And one of my favourite things about that movie, which is going to sound weird because it's not necessarily that movie, is the jump, is the leap. I'm always glad to see a director who, you mentioned Tom Payton earlier, his movie Pandorica, and then he moved on to Redwood, and then you just see the leaps and the leaps and the leaps that guy's making, and I'm always chuffed to see filmmakers and creatives who just keep leveling up. And so far I've seen 2 of your shorts, and the second one is a level up, so we're already on the right track.
Absolutely.